Before we get started, this episode's released the day after Christmas if all goes according to plan, so Merry Christmas. I hope that you had a happy one. And this is also the last episode of the HopeFilled Financial Podcast this year. And to get things started, I want to give you an update on what happened with Dave Ramsey. If you're not familiar with the back and forth that's been going on, in September I made a video trying to explain that Dave Ramsey is wrong on safe withdrawal rates. If you want to understand my argument, I recommend you go see that. On the 2nd of November this year, I called Dave Ramsey, tried to ask him about the safe withdrawal rate stuff with a personal question in a context that I thought would be productive. Instead, Dave went on a rant that went viral on Twitter, and after that, he disappeared. He wasn't on the show for 5 straight weeks. Supposedly, he was on vacation in Egypt. After Dave got back from vacation, this was the very first call that he got on the Ramsey Show.
I'd like to retire next year at 55. I feel like I have enough savings to retire comfortably, maybe possibly do a side gig, and she doesn't feel like we do. So just asking for some advice.
Well, retirement's not a feeling, so that's at least some consolation to you. We can look at some facts and data to go, all right, do you have the finances to retire? Is your nest egg big enough?
How much is your nest egg?
Before we get the answer on how big that nest egg is, I like George's response. Retirement is not a feeling. It's not an emotional opinion. It can be figured out using mathematics and facts.
Around $2.5 million.
So she needs more than a couple $100,000 a year to live on?
Apparently so.
What's your current expenses?
Right now we're probably about $8,000 a month.
Okay, so you need $100,000 a year to live, and
Correct.
$2.5 million invested in good mutual funds. If it made 10%, would be $250,000, right?
Correct.
Now you probably don't have access to all of that at 54, do you?
I'm going to stop it there again and say Dave didn't mention a safe withdrawal rate, but he implied that if the mutual fund makes 10%, then maybe you can pull out 10%. And from this point alone, you can probably tell that we failed to change Dave Ramsey's mind.
Yeah, there's a couple things. Mathematically, the answer is you're just fine, and I just outlined why.
Yep.
As soon as you get access to $2.5 million, if it's invested well, if you pull off 8 or 10% of that a year, regardless of whether she's working, you easily are going to make more than it takes to cover your expenses, right?
Correct.
I don't even know exactly the best way to describe my feelings. When I saw Dave was going to be on the show, I got excited because I was hoping that if a retirement question came up, even if he didn't address the elephant in the room that's sitting there between George and Dave, that maybe he would just change his advice and update it so it wouldn't be so risky. When I reacted to the original call that I made at the beginning of November, I spliced in a little clip from The Incredibles 2 where Dash is asking his dad, Mr. Incredible, for help with his math homework. Mr. Incredible gets frustrated saying, why would they change math? Math is math. And Dash is trying to backtrack a little bit and go, it's okay, I'll wait for mom to come home. That's kind of the way that I felt when I was going to Dave initially. It was kind of like the little kid who's looking up to their mentor, almost like a father figure. Hey, this doesn't make sense. And he got mad. Well, looking at what's going on here, I think the best way I can explain my emotions are I'm not mad. I'm not upset. I'm just disappointed. I'm genuinely, sincerely disappointed.
It's a math thing, like George said. It's not a feeling. But I think there's a lot more going on here than this.
Well, we're completely debt-free. We have no credit card debt.
No, I mean, she doesn't want you sitting at home on your butt at 54 years old. Is what it is.
No, it's not it's just going to be a career change for me. I'm very handy.
Okay,
and,
side hustle is different.
Yep.
You know.
I want to retire and do a side hustle.
It's not a side hustle. It's a business. Retire and open a business.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, we'll call it a business.
Yeah, let's start a small business idea that makes more than you used to make in corporate.
Yep.
And then none of this is an issue. So I just can't recommend. I'm 63, and I can't recommend you do nothing.
Now, I find it really interesting that Dave says to this guy that if he has access to the money, he has more than enough to retire right now. And if he wanted to, his wife's income is more than enough to meet their expenses. So he doesn't have to work. But then he's continuing to encourage him to continue working, be it at his job or starting a business. Not doing something that might be a slower pace than the individual's corporate job, but doing something that isn't a side hustle or a hobby, but a full-blown business. jumping ahead in the video, the caller makes a statement saying that he wants to be more involved, possibly with civic improvement or charity.
It's not worked out for most of my friends. They die.
No, I'm not going to do anything. Trust me. We have a younger son that I actually want to spend the summers with. So the business would give me the flexibility to schedule work based on his school schedule. So if he was home in the summers, I could spend more time with him. So this is kind of a work-life balance thing for me.
Yeah. You have the money to do whatever you want. I'm now moving from financial to life. Do something, okay? Babysitting your kid in the summers, going from with the net worth you have, is your only goal, and calling that life balance and making it sound cool it's going to wear pretty thin quick, dude. You're going to want to go do something with your life, and you're too young to do nothing. You're too valuable in the marketplace, so go do something with your life. That's just guy to guy right there. That has nothing to do with the math. The math is you're just fine. And I kind of think in this argument with your wife, she's a little bit worried about that.
I don't think so, because I'm pretty involved in all kinds of activities and civics. And
that's not the same thing.
So, well, I have a lot of activities to keep me busy. That's
not the same thing. I'm talking about being of marketplace value, not simply serving the JCs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so you can do whatever you want to do. I'm not belittling you for that. I'm just trying to listen to what's going on here, because there's nothing in this math that says you can't quit cold today.
Okay, we're going to cut it there. It's really fascinating to me that this individual who's calling says that he's involved with civic stuff and lots of activities. He's got plenty to keep him busy, and he wants to spend more time with his son. He wants to spend more time focusing on family. He doesn't need to work anymore to have money in his world. Now, he and his wife might disagree whether or not he should retire, and we don't get a clear answer on that. But there's nothing wrong with, even if you have a great deal of talent and value for the marketplace with a particular career, there is nothing wrong leaving that career if you don't have to work for money to pursue something that matters a lot more to you, something that is on your heart. I'm going to give you a bonus story now, and that's going to be about Benjamin Franklin. Ben Franklin was a very successful businessman. A couple of his things that he did is he started a franchise when it came to print shops, newspapers, and the like. He also invented the lightning rod. And after inventing the lightning rod, he invented fire insurance. Now, if you know anything about Ben Franklin and his history, you know that he wasn't known in the history books explicitly, exclusively, as a businessman. Ben is known for his work in science. He's known for his work in politics, especially as a diplomat overseas. He's known for his work with charities and civic improvement. He did a great deal more than running the business that he knew could be successful. And he wanted to pour his time into some things that may not have necessarily turned a profit. His mom wrote him a letter, and I'm paraphrasing some of this off my memory, but Ben Franklin's mother wrote him a letter when he wanted to walk away from being a businessman and churning out money. And she was upset that God gave him a gift, and he was throwing that gift of being able to make money and make money well. He was throwing it away in order to go do politics or fiddle with science stuff or help with charity things. She was genuinely upset and had a fair argument that she was making. Even though it's Ben's life and his mom really shouldn't at this point have a vote as to what he does with his life. That's not to say that she can't express concern, but she doesn't get a vote. And Ben's response is brilliant. He says, I'd rather have people in the future say I lived a useful life than I died rich. And I can say we look at history, Ben Franklin's contributions to what the world is today cannot be ignored. The world would be completely different if he were absent from history and if he continued to be a businessman versus all the other things he did that changed the world. Going back to Dave, Dave says it's not the same if you want to get involved with something that is a passion project or a charity or civic improvement if you have value in the marketplace. I disagree. I disagree there. I'm not going to raise as much of a stink about it as I did with the safe withdrawal rates, but all this to say, dedicating your time to charity work can be a beautiful calling. Dedicating your time to a nonprofit that you're passionate about, that stands for a cause, that weighs on your heart, is beautiful.